and it happens quite frequently. I go away for a week, and the disclaimer disappears, and it has again. So let me just tell you that as we get set for this segment of martial law, whatever this guy across the way here says, don't treat that as legal advice, because you shouldn't do that. Everything depends upon local laws, your particular case, and the various circumstances of it. So don't take this as advice and act upon it. You need a competent attorney such as Marshal Chriswell to help you to figure those things out and really to drill down on what's going on with you legally. So I hope that's enough of a disclaimer. You're an attorney. You tell me. Did it work?
That works for me.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I wasn't here last week, but you have a couple of things that you were discussing with Chuck last week that you want to do a little follow-up on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we were talking last week about a particular case that I was handling regarding an out-of-state trust, somebody that was a resident of Pennsylvania, but they had a trust prepared by an out-of-state attorney. They subsequently passed away, and lots of issues came up that needed to be dealt with very quickly. And I was working through that, and that anecdote actually generated maybe more phone calls at my office than anything that I have ever talked about on this show. So I just wanted to let people know that it's really important, if you do have out-of-state documents, if you lived somewhere else for a time, or if you had an out-of-state attorney prepare your documents, to have somebody take a look at them. And I just thought it was great that people called in, and of course I don't charge anything to take a look at some estate planning documents. Sure. So we've got folks set up to come in now and maybe take care of some issues before they become issues. So that was great.
All right. Well, let's expand on that a little bit, because in the disclaimer we didn't read, we do talk about jurisdictions and local laws, state laws that are particular to your region or to your state that really have to be paid attention to, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's maybe a little bit of a misconception that laws are pretty uniform across all states. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some uniform laws that states have the opportunity to enact, and they say, well, other states have done this, and maybe we should look at doing the same thing. But by and large, I mean, that's the way our country is set up, our system of what we call federalism, where you've got 50 state governments that are all passing laws, and for the most part, across the board, they are not the same. And so if you have a contract or we're talking about estate planning documents, or you have a dispute that involves out of state people or an out of state transaction, so there are so many considerations when it comes to jurisdiction, and also if something's going to be litigated, if you're going to be in court, what state or what county are you allowed to bring those claims in? Mm-hmm. And so that's what we call venue, and those are just really important considerations, because you have a dispute with someone, or you have an issue that needs to be heard by a court, and you file it. Say you live here in Indiana County and you file it at the Court of Common Pleas, maybe the first thing that happens is your opponent comes in and says, nope, this is a case that has to be filed somewhere else. So you've wasted a bunch of money and you have to go do that. Yeah. So it's really important to know what your jurisdiction and venue is. All right.
Anything else we need to clear up from before that we need to take care of?
No, I don't think so.
You're good? Okay. All right, let's move on. But stay in that same general neighborhood, because when you talk about laws that apply from other states and things that are prepared in other states that then they come home here because somebody is living here now, talk, if you would, a little bit about you representing someone who lives here in Indiana, whose case actually is being handled, or he has a case from, say, Montana or some distant state, and how able are you to act on behalf of that person when the case is going to be adjudicated or is going to be handled in some other state, some distant state?
Yeah, so attorneys are licensed by jurisdiction, generally by state. So I'm licensed to practice here in Pennsylvania. So I can represent people in any county court in Pennsylvania. I can represent folks in federal courts in Pennsylvania. I can handle transactions that involve Pennsylvania law, but when you get to out-of-state cases, transactions, then you need to find someone who's licensed in that jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
I can give some general guidance. I can help find referrals, but I'm not ethically permitted to represent someone in another jurisdiction without going through a process to become either temporarily or permanently licensed there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So people need to be aware of that, and certainly I would assume that since you do have a client here that you have been working with on a number of matters here in Indiana County, Pennsylvania, and they need to go to another state for some sort of case. You have to keep your hands completely off that, don't you?
I do. Now, sometimes there's going to be a little bit of overlap, and maybe I have an attorney from, if it is Montana, calling and saying, "Okay, give me the backstory here. What were the facts that led up to this, or tell me a little bit about this client or their business, or some other things they may need to know." But when it comes to developing the strategy and knowing the statutory and case law in Montana and actually representing someone in court there, I've got to leave that to local counsel.
You mentioned changing the venue in certain cases. We hear of that a lot in criminal cases. Does that happen in civil cases very much?
It's not something that I hear of much in a civil case. Sometimes you have, civil cases. While there are a lot of jury trials in civil cases, there are a whole lot of bench trials as well. And where just a judge is hearing a trial. And sometimes a judge, for one reason or another, needs to recuse themselves. But then often, rather than moving the entire case to another county, you bring another judge in.
Okay.
from whether it's a senior judge, there's a retired judges circuit that help those judges help fill in, and so that's more often than not.
When you hear in a civil case as an attorney, when you hear that a certain judge has been assigned to a case or is going to be handling a case, does that ever alter the way that you're going to present your case?
I guess sometimes it can, and just for lots of reasons. Here in Indiana County, we're blessed with very, very, very good judges that all have a wide range of experiences, and so it's not as much of a consideration. But if I'm in another county or another court somewhere, and I know that a particular judge, let's say they're sitting on a family court, sitting in the bench in family court, but I know that they've only ever really, during their practice prior to being a judge, only ever dealt with real estate cases, or only were a public defender or a prosecutor, and they don't have a lot of knowledge in family law yet, or maybe they don't. Then I'm going to have to tailor my case to maybe be a little bit more thorough in just going through the law and exactly what it is, what the particular provisions of the law are, particularly if I'm relying on something that maybe is a little bit more obscure, like interstate jurisdiction for custody cases or something.
We're pulling back the curtain a little bit on what happens when an attorney is preparing a case for taking it into a courtroom. As you have said quite often, a vast majority of the cases that you handle will be settled out of court, but you also have that in the back of your head all the time that this could come before a judge at some point, and so you really have to have everything in your mind settled in terms of legality and in terms of how a judge would rule in a particular case right from the very start, don't you?
Absolutely. Something that we've talked about is, like you said, very few cases make it to trial. Whether you're in a civil dispute over money or contracts, or whether it's a family law case, a divorce case, a criminal case, very, very few cases in this country make it to trial. But in order to get the best result for your client, you have to be prepared to go to trial. and that's the key. And part of that preparation is knowing what the realm of likely outcomes are, and being able to inform your client what those are, and then based on that, what a reasonable settlement would be in that matter.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking with Marshall Chriswell this morning here on Martial Law about a lot of different issues that happen behind the scenes of preparing a case. But as you mentioned, as you began this segment, you got a lot of calls from folks who were thinking about that jurisdiction thing and the case coming from another state. I don't know how common that is. I would assume it's fairly common, and it's something that you deal with on a regular basis.
It is, and in this case, it was. I talked about the fact that we had this issue come up. Somebody calls me from out in Iowa and says, "Hey, we have about 3 days to resolve this. It's a trust. Someone passed away. The terms of the trust, there are issues with that. They didn't convey certain real estate into the trust as they should have. That's located here in Pennsylvania. So now, and I think it's great. I have people that heard that, and they're saying, all right, let me give an attorney a call and make sure that if I have something that I did out of state, let's make sure that it's compliant with Pennsylvania law. And then let's also make sure that we've followed up and done everything that we need to do to make administration of the estate or the trust as seamless and convenient for my heirs and family members as possible. So I just thought it was great that it got people thinking, and hopefully we catch some issues before they occur.
It's kind of interesting you say that, because I was thinking they have to put their thinking caps on all of a sudden, and maybe that gets the wheels turning. I think probably the thing that stands in the way most of all is they just don't want to think about it. Let's put it off a little bit. You don't want them to do that.
No, you can't because you just never know what's going to happen.
He's Marshall Chriswell. Someone wants to learn more. What do they need to do?
Give me a call at 724-465-5826. Stop into our office in downtown Indiana in the Atrium building, or go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
Thank you so much. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM.